what does help me is that non-reaction and thinking. I usually go bigger and go, okay, does this mean anything for 5, 10? Do I want to keep the connection with them and not react over something that's not going to matter in a few years?
I think back to being relatable, I think that your diligence is that you can, how do I say this? So Brandon being able to just do it no matter what the outcome is and, stick to the plan, there's more emotion connected there. And so people experience more of that rejection or insecurity at a level that maybe they're more aware of. I don't know, for whatever reason. And so to watch you and to hear your story and to experience those kinds of things and do it anyway. Brandon was doing it anyway, but he wasn't as emotionally affected.
Yeah.
So for you to do that and have those emotions, but do it anyway, that is like, oh my gosh, that I can share your story with me. Like, what are you doing?
Okay.
So I think that was such an important part of your guys' partnership, and then people, your leadership to other people. You know what I mean? Because if it was just Brandon alone, very few people can do what he's done. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'm not saying that's not to say you're not special, because you totally are.
You are special.
You're very special. But does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that actually makes perfect sense, because I would speak and then people would say, thank you so much. I really appreciate what you said today. And then Brandon would kind of be like, that was maybe a little personal, maybe don't quite do that. Not making him sound like he's not feedback. Nice or anything, but just kind of feedback, maybe don't quite, say it like that or whatever. And I'd be like, oh no, okay, again, I'm never speaking again. But then I'm like, then why is everyone telling me I did great? Thank you so much. Please speak, please speak. And I wouldn't speak unless I was asked. I was never like, oh, I want to go up and speak. But if someone asked me, I would always do it. There was only one time that I wasn't formally asked, and Brandon was like, just come up with me. And I'm like, no, I don't just go up for no reason. I want to go up and I felt very inspired to share something. But other than that, if I was asked, I would do it. But I never wanted to just go up. And recognition, you're on these big stages and walking across a stadium full of people and you're getting recognized. And I would be like, hey, hi. Oh my gosh. Everyone's like, number one, we rock. And I'm just like, oh hey guys. Gosh, totally. I'm like, I don't
and to give you guys an idea of how big the recognition is, Brandon was the youngest person to go over $1 million of income in a rolling 12-month period of time, and he was 29, right? He was 29.
Yep, I was 26. He's 29.
So at 29 and 26, these guys make $1 million in a 12-month rolling calendar year, and they're on stages in the Georgia Dome. I mean, what are you? How many people?
50,000.
50,000 people. And they're cheering for him and they're getting presented these awards. And Lexi's like, hey, guys.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, it just didn't. I mean, it's I wanted to win, but I also am I can do without that. It's I wanted the trophy. I wanted to win, but I also am don't.
You wanted the trophy to signify that your effort and work was acknowledged, but you didn't need the fanfare that went with it, because it was I did a good job, and I just need everyone to know that I did a good job, but I don't want it to do it in public.
Well, I think a lot of people...
all just send me a
know
note.
It quietly.
Yeah. Just send me a DM. You did great. No, but I think a lot of people are kind of uncomfortable with recognition, uncomfortable with compliments. And I mean, that's a whole different beast at 50,000 people. But a lot of people, when you say, hey, you look nice, a lot of people are like,
thanks.
Oh,
instead of just
I didn't
thanks.
Even try
because,
today. Or,
right. There's always, we like to excuse it, right? Yeah. And I think that just comes from self-acceptance too. And the more we're self-accepting, the more we're able to say, hey, thanks. That means a lot. You know what I mean? And so I think that's a good point of recognition.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, I think, shy away from that, because it's
Well, we weren't, and back to how we were raised. I mean, I think mom and dad were powerhouses, but they were kind of that silent,
no
quiet,
one
not a
knows
lot of
that.
fanfare, but just that, they weren't out there boisterous in your face. They didn't share their opinion unless it was asked. They were
handle
very
things
wise.
very well. Like that's like to compliment them. Maybe they'd be like, "Oh, it's okay."
Yeah.
No, but they handled things very well. I've known them. I've known
I was 12,
Altee
I
and
think,
Lexee.
14.
Yeah, so we were 14. Lexee was 12, but I've known them this whole time. And yeah, your mom and dad were always so kind, but the way they handled things was always so great. And even like you said, dealing with what people deal with, that's when when people can set aside their insecurities and their frustrations and their angers and
They were just
meet
always
you where
really,
you're at.
They were just always really level-headed and non-reactive.
Yes.
And that's what I think, I think it's a real strength to do that, to have that emotional
when I
restraint.
think of, now that makes sense when I think of taking a pause, right? We teach to, when you're in any situation to pause and then shift, get into heart coherence and reset. So you're in the most available present moment. That reminds me of Grammy because she's always, like that's a pause, right?
It really is.
Like, it
No,
really
that's
is. And
true.
that's why
Like,
I
let
think,
me think
think
about this
about
before I
having a-
react.
I think that's why Grammy's so great at responding to things, because she takes that minute and goes,
Yeah.
Do you think that would be the same as having a eternal perspective on something? Is that because that's what helps me either stay in the moment or eternal? Like, do you need to
Right.
shrink down or go bigger?
Right.
Because that's what helps me usually.
Like in the grand scheme of things, this isn't
Yes.
that big of a deal. And if I
Yeah.
stay in the present moment,
if it's not going to matter in 5 minutes, 5 days or 5 years or whatever.
I don't think I've ever had a babysitter that's ever not told me. I shouldn't have said so many double negatives, but anyway, that I'm like the
That's
most
never
patient.
not told
Yes, exactly. Every sitter's always told me
Yes.
that they're like, you're such a patient mom. Like, you are so patient. And I'm like, okay, either my kids are horrible and that's your way of saying it, or I've learned some patience. I don't know which one it is, but what does help me is that non-reaction and thinking. I usually go bigger and go, okay, does this mean anything for 5, 10? Do I want to keep the connection with them and not react over something that's not going to matter in a few years? So is that a similar thing, like a mindset or a similar energy
the heart
moment? Or
that's the heart brain coherent state, is being able to choose in the moment. Do I react or do I respond? Like that is that's and you've become better at that, right? As the years have gone on, because the more emotions you remove, what happens is the more emotions we remove, the lighter you become, and the more able you're able to. I'm doing it too. But the more able you are to access the heart, and the more able you are to access the heart, the clearer you'll think, because the heart opens up the mind. The clearer you'll think, the more creative you'll be. But then, especially, the more present you'll be in the moment and able to think clearly in the moment. Okay, is this that big a deal?
yes,
No, I'm grateful that, we're having this conversation. I'm grateful that my kids didn't get hurt. I'm grateful that the circumstance happened, because that's a learning moment. And is this going to matter that much and even tomorrow? And if it doesn't, which most of it doesn't, I think the more we learn, right?
Yeah,
it's
like a
just
kid spills something instead of being like, what the heck? Just going, oh, darn it, let's clean that up. I mean, just even something that simple, that stays with a child, right?
well, yeah. And that, I was going to say really fast with in the present, is it a present moment or eternal? I think it's both or either. And either is great, because either keeps you calm and clear and in coherence, so that you can be present in the moment and then also do that for the long term. Does that make sense?
well, because the eternal is not going to matter if we don't have the present moment, right?
Right.
Because if you don't keep that relationship now, it's not going to matter. I mean, and you can look at it both ways.
Yeah.
But either way, it keeps you right here, right now, with some perspective outside of a stress response to react. So if it's like, okay, and to your point of that staying with the kid, it absolutely does. That's what, that's what happens. That's what forms us and forms our beliefs before our conscious awareness is developed. And so those reactions teach a kid how we respond to the world around us, how we make mistakes. So if it's like they spill the milk and you're like, well, that was one possibility amongst the possibility that it didn't spill, and we just clean it up if it happens. And if it doesn't happen, then nothing happened. You know what I mean? And so that's not like, it doesn't create a belief that I'm defective. There's something wrong with me. I'm going to get in trouble if I make a mistake, or, those beliefs that start to become hardwired neurologically in your as neural pathways, and then you're living by those when you're older.
It just reminded me of, how I came up and took Dad to Garth Brooks for Father's Day. I brought a friend with me, and we were, so Dad drove us, like we drove all the way up to Salt Lake, and then Dad drove in his car with me, my friend, and her daughter, and we were stuck in major traffic, as you're trying to get out of Rice-Eccles Stadium there, and there's just cars.
Horrible parking.
That has no business
parking.
Holding an event like
no.
that. There's nowhere for anyone to park.
I know.
It's terrible.
Horrible. So this is on the way out, right? So we're just like totally talking and enjoying our conversation, and all about, whatever we were talking about. It was
All
just
about
enjoying
Garth
it.
and the thunder rolling.
Totally. Yes. And we're sitting there stuck in traffic, and, Dad's just enjoying it and having conversation. But when we got home, my friend said, I was like waiting for your dad to yell at somebody, because that's what my dad, like, I can't believe we got out of that without your dad screaming at somebody or cutting someone off, or, being like really
losing his cool somewhere.
Yes. And she's like, she felt like, oh my gosh, your dad didn't even yell at anyone. Like she was just so used to that happening that she couldn't believe that you'd be in a car with your dad. So she was just, anyway, it's just kind of interesting that
she's bracing herself for a response like that. When it didn't happen, it was like, huh?
Stressing herself out for no reason.
Yes.
But a lot of us do for no reason.
But that's a conditioned response, because that was her experience as a child, and being back in a similar scenario, you're waiting for that conditioned response.
Well, and that's why it's so important with kids, like you talked about. From 0 to age 7, children's brains operate in a theta brainwave pattern or brainwave state, and that's recordable. So meaning that they only learn by their emotions. Theta isn't a higher capacity thinking brainwave pattern. And after 7, they get into alpha and then into beta. But those first 7 years, that's why Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that book, right? It's whatever your parents teach you is going to be your belief pattern.
Yeah.
And so when we react to children so abruptly, it teaches them that that's not okay, and teaches them that belief. So like, to your point, is spilled milk worth really having a reaction over? And it just starts to, it starts to make a lot of sense as to how people develop. And, if you're listening and you get mad at your kids, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because
we do.
Everyone does. Everyone does.
Yes.
But the point is that those are the
being
beliefs
aware
that largely
of it too.
carry
like,
with
okay,
us.
this isn't really helping.
But the good part is we can remove those belief patterns, right?
Yeah.
That's what we do. But it's so great to pay attention to now. And it's not, it's by improving that on a daily basis, right? You talked about that a little while ago, about that constant improvement. It's like atomic habits, 1% every day. Like, what are you going to do today that's different than yesterday?
Yeah.
We can't correct yesterday, and we can't fix tomorrow, because yesterday's already gone, and tomorrow hasn't happened. But we can, in the moment, imply more intention and more effort towards increasing capacities, increasing resilience towards, okay, I'm going to focus on being calmer with my kids today. I'm going to focus on, going to the gym. I'm going to focus on meditating for 15 minutes instead of 10 minutes. So it's just about that 1%.
Going back to that self-improvement stuff. So in this business that we built together, that was, of course, talked about so much, like self-improvement, reading books daily. And I already loved to read and to grow that way. But it kind of, I don't know if it created a monster, but I can't stop just trying to get better. Stop. I know, just in ways I want to learn a lot of things about human behavior, or I don't know. There's a lot of things that I want to learn about, but I was going to bring up a point. What was it? Swim lessons. I wanted to bring this up because I've been terrified of water for as long as I can remember. Somehow I did find my certificate that I passed swim lessons
Did you
level
put it up on your wall?
She's like,
Look,
I'm
Brandon.
just gonna give
When
you
I-
the stickers
This
because
is when I was little. Like I can remember going, but I'm like, how did I pass? Because I remember being terrified forever. And then it's grown into my adulthood where we haven't had a pool for years. I'm the worst person to have a pool in the whole world. And I think I was putting out that because our pool cover would break all the time. I'm like, how is this possible? Everyone I've told that to is like, our pool cover never breaks.
We've had a pool
It would
cover for
break.
50 years.
She was
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
scared of being responsible. Well, we'll get to that because it's part of.
Wait, what scared you when you were little?
Well, okay,
was it
so
Jaws? Because Jaws scared me.
it wasn't Jaws. No, it was something else. But it was interesting because we were all down at her house. She bought us tickets to David Archuleta to go to Tuacahn, and so we were all down here. And she was so nervous to have all the kids at her house, all
Which
the
is
grandkids.
today again.
Oh yeah, he's here.
Oh, yeah?
yeah.
That's kind of funny.
Okay, that is interesting.
But she was so nervous to have us all there with the pool that her pool cover got broken in the open position, and we were all
Hours before we were to leave.
we were to leave, all the adults, and there was a babysitter, and then Kaylee and Jersey, who were were they 14 at the time?
No, because this was probably was this 5? I think Dodger was a baby.
Oh, Dodger was because I didn't have
Yeah.
Brooklyn yet. I was
Yeah.
thinking of when I brought Brooklyn down. Okay, yeah, so that
We're
was
talking 2016.
Oh, that's right.
2017.
That's right.
Right,
Okay.
so they
Remember
were 11.
how dates don't even. I'm like,
Yeah.
could have been yesterday. It
Oh
could have
my
been.
gosh.
Could have been
And
last
I'm
year. could have been
relating
5
it
years.
to something.
But no, I mean, we have to leave, and there's 15
Little kids.
little kids at her house with a babysitter, and she.
You guys had to take me and I'm like having a panic attack that I'm
She's
going to
like,
leave.
I'm just gonna stay home and
Luckily,
stand
I
guard.
was able to get a hold of a guy who used his shoelace somehow to fix that. I don't even know what he did, but it was
At least she
anyway.
got it closed.
It was
but
MacGyver.
God,
was-
yes,
Used his
he
shoelace
was.
to fix
He's
it.
like, I just went and got my golf shoelace and just
Oh,
fixed
that's
it.
going to date us.
Oh my gosh, I'm hyper.
But
No,
but it was a real
so
fear.
it's a panic of for some reason putting my face in. Like I'll get in and swim. That's not a problem. I can swim around and save myself if I needed to, get out. Or I'd go under and plug my nose, but I couldn't ever go in and put my face in without plugging my nose. And then just a lot of fear about a child falling in and not being able to save them. And being responsible for that and never being able to forgive myself, right? And so
I'll never be forgiven.
I'll
That
never be
was-
forgiven.
That was the despair anchor. So we talked about despair anchors at the beginning, and one of the sessions that we worked on with this fear of water was there was a belief that I'll never be forgiven. And as we were kind of unpacking it, it was like if something happens on my watch care, if a kid gets injured or drowns or something happens, I'll never be forgiven.
Yeah. So I decided that I needed to face this fear, right? I needed to take swim lessons. And one of my really good friends said, I'm going to teach you to swim. So this was just 2 summers ago. Yeah, like a year and a half ago. And my first lesson, I was in the corner crying. Like I got in the water and she's like, hey, put your goggles on and put your face in. And I just started crying. I couldn't even, it was like, it didn't even make sense. Like, why am I freaking out? Like, my whole body was reacting to something so silly that little kids do. All of my kids can swim. They put their faces in, and for some reason I can't
And there was
do it.
another neighbor there.
She was like, I'll have you join with this girl. I think you're on the same level. And this girl, after like 5 minutes, is swimming laps with her face in, and I was crying in the corner. So no.
Lexee is 40, and this girl was...
She was 18.
18.
Yep, and she'd never had lessons, and so she's swimming laps, and I was really crying. So she ended up.
She really did. Lexee called me crying after she left, and she's
Yeah.
like, I just love swimming lessons.
So between you and Sarah and doing some work, we were able to uncover a lot of things, right? And then also something that my friend did that showed me that just helped open my mind is for some reason I had it in my mind that the water just goes up your nose. Like you can't breathe under there. Like made no sense that like your face can't go in the water. Like
Right.
it just can't. I don't understand this. I've never been able to understand how people can just jump in and not have it go up their nose. And she got a cup. And she's like, let me show you. She's like, you think the water goes up your nose, huh? I'm like, yes, it does. It always does.
How
I
could
come
it
out with
not?
it. Yeah. And she put a cup and she goes, put on your goggles and plug your nose and go under. And she put a cup under the water. And I saw that the water only goes to the very, very bottom. And she's like, that's like right here on your nose. It only goes to there. It doesn't go up because of the pressure of, your head or brain or whatever. Kevin, what's the pressure?
Well, yeah, there's open space in there, so
okay,
it acts like a vacuum in reverse effect.
Okay,
right?
Okay,
because there's already air in there.
Okay, so I know this is dumb, but I think honestly, this is probably why I'm relatable, because I don't mind telling people how silly things that I've done or thought or whatever. And anyway, so I saw that and it was like switched in my brain immediately. And I was like, okay, I can do this. So, I mean, by my second lesson, I was swimming laps.
But there was literal terror in her nervous system. And so what happens in that, and you know, we've worked on this a little bit, and I've asked my mom, did something happen that you're aware of with Lexee, you know, when she was little that she doesn't recall? Because a lot of times you don't remember. Mm-hmm. And mom told us when you were 2, you were sitting on the steps. Was it in Uncle Benson and Aunt Kimmy's pool? Or
it
was
wasn't
someone's.
There. It was, I think we were visiting Dixie and Ben somewhere.
Maybe an aunt and uncle. We were at someone's pool, and she was 2, and she was sitting on the steps. And she took a step down past what, you know, it was too deep for her. And I can see it happen. And when you explain to me how your face going under the water, that's when you panic. And it's almost like that 2-year-old steps down off that step. And if you can see me, but the water coming up over your face and you can't breathe and you are panicked. Mm-hmm. And that panic and terror of like, I can't breathe. Something's wrong here. I mean, at 2 years old, traps in your nervous system. And now every time you get in the water, you think you're going to have that same experience. Mm-hmm. And now you're 38 trying to figure out why you can't outthink the way that you feel. And you go to get in the water, and the water starts to, you know, rise up to your face. And it is like, get me out of here. It's trauma. Mm-hmm. It's a trauma response. And so as we clear the leftover vibrational frequency of terror and panic from your nervous system, and then you can, from a more objective place, see what is actually happening, you can kind of create a new belief or a new reality or a new experience without all that impacting what's actually happening right now. Mm-hmm. And that's what we want to do, is clear out that old stuff from those old experiences, because at 38 or 40 years old, that's different than being 2 and having no way to command, you know, change in your environment. Mm-hmm. You know,
you can't emotionally regulate when you're 2.
Yes.
Like, it's not.
Okay.
So
possible. Emotionally
regulating for 1, and for 2, knowing your options. Okay, well, I'll just stand up. Mm-hmm. I can get to the side of the pool. Right. I can call for help. I can, you know what I mean? And you can reason with it, getting to a more objective place. But as that emotional response was the same from that traumatic experience. And so when you're trying to reconcile, going, why can't I just jump in the water like everybody else does? Yeah. Everything in your body.
And then it adds, something's wrong with me. Like, I don't know how to do this. Total shame, embarrassed. Let's go boating. Okay. I didn't want to go boating. I know, it's kind of silly. And then it connects to everything. It does, though.
Here we are, back to shame and everything.
So Altee and Sarah gave me, they removed a ton of stuff. And before I went, a lot of removal, like to even gear me up to go, lots of removal so I could even have the, just that bravery to even go and attempt it. And then I called you after every session. The first one I was crying after my first lesson. And you guys were able to remove a lot and input new beliefs and wanted me to just repeat those and help, you know, get them solidified in my brain. And
then after they removed stuff, that's when I just said stuff, see? After they removed stuff,
things.
then is that when your friend showed you the cup and you were like, okay?
Yes.
So
yes.
I wanted to talk about that, because what happens is when we're operating with conditioned beliefs, in the moment, I mean, because emotions are more powerful than thoughts, and we need our thoughts so we can create.
Okay.
But in the moment, if that emotion of terror, or not if, but when that emotion of terror is felt, the amplitude of that terror is so high, what happens in the nervous system is the heart sends that very erratic signal through the nervous system up to the brain, and the brain can't process it, so it shuts off your frontal cortex, so you can't think clearly, right? Mm-hmm. So then if you're supposed to outthink your emotion in the moment. So then when she
shows me that, it clicks and makes sense, right?
So in the moment.
Space to receive it.
Right, so when we remove that terror, now it opens up that neural pathway, it removes the emotion from that belief. And when there's not terror around it and she can show you something
makes
different,
perfect sense,
now
'cause
you're
someone could've
open-minded, right?
Shown me that before. I've been like, that means nothing to me.
that
I don't
means
care.
nothing to me. You're dead to me.
Yes.
But that means nothing to me because you were so subjective to that terror because that's how the heart, mind, and heart, nervous system, and mind work.
Yeah.
Same thing, heart, mind, and nervous system. But that's how the heart, mind, and nervous system work, is that when the heart is relaying those signals of terror to the brain, frontal cortex can't process that, so it turns off, but that's all your thinking capacity. So when people tell you outthink your emotion, it's like, cool, but I'm in terror.
It would be
there's
like
a
me-
slight possibility, but it's not very high.
Okay.
It would be like me showing my computer. This is a cup, and there's, do you know what I mean? It's not processing because that's not how it works.
Yes.
Yeah, you're yelling at your computer program to stop the
Yes.
program, and it's
Well,
like,
because that was my second, the first lesson I didn't accomplish as much, because
Right.
anyway, but yeah, by the second one, and then I'm more open. And I do remember the night before, you and Sarah talking to me, and then she sent me a whole bunch of beliefs, and I'm trying to work through that. And yeah, and then that was a lesson that she showed me that. So
and then because again we remove that emotion. I'm on the table removing an emotion. If you can see, I'm removing it.
Have to use your hands.
That opens up the heart to new capacity.
okay,
Then in the moment, you're not freaked out. When you're not freaked out in the moment and you're calm, then when someone says, here, try it this way, well, now you're operating from a coherent state. So the brain's functioning at its highest capacities. And now you're like, oh, that makes sense, right?
yes,
Then now you can learn, right? That's where learning happens in that frontal cortex. So now that you see that, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Doesn't have the emotional charge from it. So now we just installed a new belief, or you just installed a new belief, right? Because you're looking at it and like, okay, this is very peaceful. This is very calm. I can see now that when I put the cup in the water, that the water's not going up the nose. And look, there's sometimes you can jump in really hard and it goes up the nose. But, that's force.
But
So you get into physics, but
I
at the
was
same
placing
time,
my face in
yes, but it won't go up there like that unless you have an extreme physical force. But anyway, once you remove those, everyone's focused on improving mindset. When you remove those emotional charges from those beliefs, and their neurological hardwired networks in the brain, now you can look at things from a different perspective. And now you can say, oh, right? Because you're always going to get what your perception is in the moment. And whatever emotion you're feeling in the moment is going to tell your brain what story to tell itself.
Do you know what else just clicked in my mind is the thought that came to me was to put my face in forward when I just did that instead of going down. So that clicked in my head. Can I put my face in like this instead of going down? Because they're teaching you just, okay, lower down a little bit, lower down. And I'm like, that's why I'm panicking. I can't do it.
Yeah.
There's no way. And then it did click in my mind. What if I do it this way? Which I don't know why it's different, but it felt different.
Different experience.
But see, these limiting beliefs, they're so paralyzing, yet they're so simple, right? It's like, I guess not simple, but once you remove that emotion, things become very simple because it's not that difficult, but it's the emotional charge of fear behind it. Like that terror, that's fear. That's scary.
Yeah.
That's terror's like fear on steroids.
Right.
And it's you can't reason with it. And, and there really isn't.
That reminds me of the Terminator.
Yeah. Well,
It can't be reasoned with. It can't be bargained with.
It's all about the
How
movie
does-
quotes.
How does he know? Because he's watched it 5 million times. No, but I just think, how do you know what to work on in life? And as you're saying this, and it's like whatever comes up.
Yes.
Like if swimming, if it's like I don't like swimming and it's not a problem in my life, then that's not something that gets my attention. I don't care. But if it's like, this has been really problematic for me. I can't enjoy swimming with my kids. I moved out of the house with a pool and I'm never doing that again. Or, if it's disruptive to your life, then those are the things. It's like, let's dig into that. Let's see what's there. Let's unpack it, and it's interesting, when I'm working on people, it's like, what are the associated imbalances? Meaning you had that experience with swimming, but then connected to that is other times of shame or fear or whatever. And so it's like they all kind of connect, and this unravel. It's like this big ball of yarn, and it's like we're just unpacking
like
it,
when someone
unraveling
gives you
it.
a nose plug for a birthday present, like teasing you, and I'm like,
Yeah, I just added to my shame, and I just went
did that?
deeper. We won't name any
No
names.
names necessary. I just want to know.
I think it was out of love, but it's still, for me, I took it as like, oh my gosh, I don't know how
You're
to swim.
shaming me.
Yeah, but
Right.
I knew they weren't, but it was like, oh my gosh, I took that as.
But
you
see
don't
how
know.
insignificant
We even had a boat for a long
something
time
can be.
too.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Like
Sorry?
just how insignificant, like someone's not meaning it
Yes.
that way, but because of your belief and your perception in the moment, it
Yeah.
adds more amplitude to that emotion, and it's like, or that belief, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah, at first you have terror. Now you have, low self-esteem and shame and,
Yes.
and rejection and sorrow.
that could translate into any other time of my, part of my life or something that you're just not even. Well,
Yeah, no,
and that's why they call it striking a nerve, right?
yes.
That's the layman's phrase is striking a nerve, but that's because the nervous system, that emotion, that memory, that belief gets that charge as soon as you do something similar. It's like, what? Why do I feel like this?
Yeah.
But the point is, those are all limiting beliefs, and we can get past those, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you don't have to deploy willpower and determination and grit your way through putting your face in the pool.
Yeah.
There's an easier way. Now, can you do that too? Sure. Sure.
And maybe a little both, but there's a gentler, more gentle way to do
Well,
it.
I'm just very grateful for the work and how much you guys have done for me and for our family. Like it's been game-changing, life-changing for all of us. And I'm so grateful for it. And I really hope that people will take the time to listen and invest in themselves and, I don't know, take the time to let you guys do what you do best. You guys are awesome. Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah.
Have you asked one question yet? I don't know if you've asked a question.
I'm interviewing you.
This is she went
I
from
would
feeling
love you.
timid to I'm taking over.
She's totally opened up now. We can go
I'm
for
on
another
one
2
side,
hours.
you guys are on the other, so I'm interviewing you. I just wanted to ask, I've been thinking about this. So I have 4 children, as you know. It
do?
Yes. It took us a long time to have children. We built our business, and it took us 6 years to have our first child, and we went through IVF and all those things, which, side note that we won't have time to get into, but Altee cleared. That was like the first time that you worked on me, was clearing out the medications and a little bit of that trauma in my body from all of that IVF. So being a busy mom that, partnered to a husband with lots of different things going on, companies and businesses he's growing, and being pulled different ways with 4 kids and still wanting to self-improve and make it to the gym and doing all these things. I hear a lot of people talk about like me time, right? Like I need some time for me because I'm being pulled all these different ways. And it doesn't always sit right with me because I'm like, to me, we're supposed to be in the service of others, right? In service of your fellow being, you're in service of God. And we're supposed to like lose our life, right? Into the service of God. So I don't know. Can you guys explain that a little bit to me, of the balance between like needing me time and serving others, and not just like taking all this time for yourself? Go ahead.
Not making it like selfish. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like, how people are like, I need some me time. I need to go get a massage or whatever. And not that getting a massage is bad. I don't love the phrase, I need some me time.
Well, I guess I shouldn't say
all
so.
about me.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Do you see what I'm asking?
Right.
Well, I think that of course, in regards to what we're working on, and Lexee, I thank you for the compliments.
Yes.
We are dragging you on this journey, whether you like it or not. I call her and let her know what we're working on, and that we have a real good understanding of each other. I assume she appreciates it and that she wants it done, and she assumes she can call me anytime, which is accurate. But I think in relation to what we were talking about with investing in self, there's a difference, I think, between like the me time and like it's what was the word that we were talking about on our way over here?
Emergent.
It's
And self-interest.
It's self-interest.
Okay.
Not, there's a real movement, I feel like, that's like self-care, me time, and self-interest. And I just feel like that is, that gears more to, not that I don't think it's important. Listen, I, do the things too. I work on the external. But I think the real self-care comes from the inside out, and enhance the outside as you see fit. If you want the massages or the hair extensions or have eyelashes, because it makes my makeup process much easier. Looks better on the camera. But I think that self-interest is different than that self-improvement when you're working on the things that we're talking about, because when you're investing the time and the money and the willingness into that development from the inside out, and you are doing the work that you've done, especially like with us, in my opinion, you then can show up as such a better version of yourself, such a better, more patient mom, such a more resilient, emotionally resilient, physically resilient, mentally resilient, spiritually resilient mom, partner, friend. And that to me is the self-care that I think is invaluable. The self-care that's the external is, good for the ego boost, and we all like it, but it doesn't really contribute to humanity, to society, to the collective consciousness, if you will. And so to me, this work is that service to self and others, and everybody elevates in that. And we all move together, congruently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's what changes your state of being.
Okay.
Right. I think like self-care, like when you talked about like massage or, all the externals, those are all great. And I think they're necessary, right? I have Rob come work on me every other week on massage. Thanks, Rob. Rob with Premier Fitness Massage. And it's necessary. Does that help? Yes. What is the greatest effector would be your internal state, right? Your state of being. So when we look at, like when Altee just said, affecting the consciousness of the planet, like with HeartMath, we call it, what are you feeding the field? And momentary happiness or gratitude by doing things on the external are great. But can you affect the internal? Can you work on the internal so that when you're feeding the field, we call it the field, the magnetic field that sustains life on the planet, but that everyone feels, right?
So is you're helping your internal, you're helping
yes.
the collective.
So the better I feel internally, the more gratitude I feel, the more compassion I feel, the more care, the more love, the more peace. I should have led with love, the more joy, the more excitement, the more enthusiasm I feel,
The more courage,
the more honor that I feel internally, that will start affecting the external environment around me, right? Like you talk about service and serving God. So we know studies we've done that if I go serve you, what happens immediately in you, and this is how we get rid of ego too, is if I'm serving you, there's no way I can be selfish, right? I become selfless in the moment because I'm getting rid of the things maybe I want to do, but I'm going to heart and I'm not going to head and ego. So I'm going to heart and I'm saying, here, Lex, I'll help you, move your red.
Oh yeah,
Entertainment.
The red entertainment. Yeah. What is it? A
Console.
credenza? Yeah.
Console.
That we moved the other night. But then what happens is we show an increase in oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine in your physiology. It happens the same in my physiology. And then anyone that's witnessing it. So Altee, Kaylee, Carson also got a rise in serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin. So what we know is that when we serve people, not only is that rewarding to other people, but we also receive the same reward, right? It's like whatever you give will come back tenfold, right? And so the same is for every moment of every day. How can you serve humanity And that's by being in a heart coherent, elevated emotional state as much as possible. If I go to the store and I'm frustrated, do the people around me sense that frustration? Body language, but also the electromagnetic field that the heart produces. The nervous system is tuned to those frequencies so people can feel it, right? But, I'll relay the story. I don't know, when was this? A year and a half ago?
I don't know what story.
This was in the winter. I know. I'm asking you
should just know.
ambiguously. No,
Probably.
it was last like a
She
year and a
wouldn't
half
know
ago
anyway.
in the winter. Yeah.
I'm like, could have been
A
last
year and a half
could have
ago in the
been
winter.
3.
Anyway, I was at a Cafe Rio, and there was a gentleman behind me in line, and I leaned on the side, on the sign. I'm a bigger dude, so it broke the sign. I was like, ugh. Anyway, we were joking back and forth about that, and then I wanted guacamole on my burrito, and it was the last of the guacamole in that little, in that little dish, and they got more. But he's like, dude, you took the last guacamole. And we were having a great conversation, and, I try and listen to my heart as much as possible with guidance, intuition. And I felt, hey, pay for this guy's lunch. Sometimes I'm like, really? But I was like, all right, pay for the guy's lunch. Not a big deal, $12 or whatever. And that's not the point. But, when I do that, I don't like to make a big deal of it. And I just kind of make it anonymous. Like, hey, I'm getting the guy behind me, the lady behind me, whatever. And I just kind of go on my way. And he came up to me and he was like, hey, I want to say thank you because someone stole my bike the other night and you just reaffirmed my hope in humanity. And so the point is that when you do, when we are looking through the heart rather than through ego, because my brain would have said, well, that would have been another lunch for me. Right.
Yeah.
But when we're operating with heart coherence, meaning that the heart and the mind are in optimal alignment, we have our highest thinking capacity and we can create and we can lead with heart and really serve humanity. That's how we're feeding the field. But what happens is I served that gentleman. In turn, I served my inner state as well because it made me feel really good. But then what happens is 100%, I don't know this for a statistical fact, but I guarantee you that gentleman, because he said, someone stole my bike. I was at a piano concert hall learning to play the piano. And my bike is the only way I get around. That's how I get to work. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I probably should have just bought him a bike, but we were at Cafe Rio. And I would have. But the point is I know instead of feeling down and out and feeling that everyone was against him, I'm sure he went back to his apartment and he was able to give someone a hug or give someone words of affirmation or encourage somebody else and know that, there is good in the world because people make it that way, right? Because it's a conscious effort that we all have to do. And so my point in that whole rambling
I'm glad you shared that story.
was the more we can be tuned in, the more we can rid ourselves of these emotions because look, most people either operate from the past and all the crap that happened yesterday, 5 days ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and we recall that on a daily basis and we live in that resentment and that frustration that things didn't, these things happened and that's why we are this way. Or we live in anxiety for the future, worrying about what could possibly go wrong. But those two states take us out of the present moment. And if we're not in the present moment, if I was sitting there lamenting my past or worried about, the future, I wouldn't have been able to, share in the kindness and the care that I was able to share in and affect and contribute to the field that we all are involved in every day and feed that field. So long story short, it's so much more rewarding to feed from that internal state.
Okay, so it's about filling a cup with.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, you can't pour. The phrase is you can't pour from an empty cup, and so it
But
does
you're
take.
filling up the cup.
It does take
Yeah.
personal care, right?
Yes.
It does. It does take. We teach. grounding, heart coherent meditation. We teach that on, individually or on
Hydration
our
and
big
all
group
the-
Raise Your Vibration call. But, we do teach that you should take 10 minutes a day and get into heart coherence through meditation. You should, take some time for yourself, but at the same time you're doing that, can you and will you operate from heart and feed that field?
Well,
if you're at other places, can you compliment other people? Can you help other people out? Can you go outside of yourself, which will help build yourself and fill your own cup?
Well, I think to your point of you can't pour from an empty cup. If your emotional and mental state of being is that of a depleting emotion, like any of the 60 emotions that we talk about over and over and over again, of hopelessness or fear, or rejection, or
if you're
anger,
stressed out,
if there's stress there, and you're going and getting the massages and getting the external beauty things done, you're adding air to your cup. That's what we were laughing about. Yeah. Oh, that's a little more air and a little more. So then you're still trying to pour from really an empty cup. It's very empty. So
it's like such a good visual.
Yeah. And I feel like that was service too. I mean, this is just, as you're talking about service, I'm like, there's a lot of people who exhaust themselves in service and go, I am told that I should lose myself in the service of others. And now I'm more exhausted. I'm more tired. And I feel worse actually. But I think that's where, again, shifting your state of being by shifting your emotional state and serving from there, that's where it's a renewing emotion, because that's where you're accessing the power of your heart. Because if your heart is shut down and you're serving, then you're just exhausting your physical body. And then you're going further into resentment. You're going further into regret. You're going further into overcare of like, I'm supposed to care, but now nobody's noticing and I'm not getting reciprocated. And then it's totally counterproductive at that point. So when you're serving from an emotionally resilient, coherent state, it is an entirely different physiological response, chemical response in your body. And that's what renews you. That's what gives you more energy. That's where you lose yourself in the service of others. And then if you want to do the external things to beautify, do that. And a lot of times you don't really need to, because you're radiating and you're radiant. So you don't have to do the pretend things. Yeah. But if you want to, then do that too, but coming from a different state of being, it's an entirely different experience.
Well, that's very helpful. That was very good, even though I kind of put you on the spot, but
no, it's always your internal state. Your internal state is always going to dictate your thoughts, and your internal state is your emotions in the moment and your thoughts in the moment. But your emotions are always going to produce largely that internal state, which is then going to tell your brain, and your brain's going to really tell the story of how you're feeling in the moment. And so then that flows through to everything else. So the more you upgrade your internal state, which is upgrading the subconscious programming and then accessing heart and brain coherence together. So your heart's opened up, you got your elevated emotions flowing, and then you have your higher capacities of your thinking capabilities open. We can't do one without the other. We need the heart and the brain. But that's what starts producing such greatness in life, such happiness. That's why your dad and mom, I should say mom and dad, that's why your mom and dad are so happy now, right? Because they've upgraded, we've removed so many of these negative beliefs and limiting beliefs that now work's great, home was great, relationships great, abundance is flowing into their life. Like it just is.
Blocks and walls have been removed, and they are just experiencing life from the love that they are in so much more of an authentic way. So
well,
I think.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, you guys. Holy cow,
thanks
that was awesome.
Thanks for last minute coming on, because that was great.
Did we replace some old beliefs?
Yeah, I hope so.
Is there anything
else? You look like you feel great.
Yeah.
So,
I was maybe doing this so I can sit a little nicer.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about our childhood? Roller skating in the basement with tights on our head.
Tights in a like wrapped together, like we had long hair.
Were those the stretched tights already, or
no? That was,
these were actually the long.
Yeah, those were like the full tights.
Those are some good memories. But I just love you guys. You're the best. You're doing such good work. You really are. And me and my family, thank you very much. Like we really do.
Well, thanks, and we love you right back.
Grateful you let us try all the things on you, and that you're here, and that we get to do this together. So
very good.
All righty then.
Thanks for listening. Have a great day.
Good job.